What's going on YouTube? It's Tej back again with another video, and today I'm giving you my grades from round 1 of the 2021 NFL Draft. I'm sure you've watched a ton of these videos across YouTube, and I appreciate you clicking on and watching one more today. Also, just passed 50 subs, so I want to say thank you. Small milestone. I know I'm still a small channel, but it means the world to me. Also, if you're new to the channel and haven't heard me say it before, once I get to 100 subs, and then every 100 subs thereafter until we get to 1,000, I'm going to be giving away a $25 gift card. Xbox, PlayStation for those who watch my gaming content, which is going to be coming back very soon, I promise, including some MLB The Show, or just a $25 Visa card for people who don't play video games and just want money in their pocket. I will make it happen for whoever wins. So if you're new to the channel, haven't subbed yet, I highly encourage you to do so. Have friends who like sports content, whether video games or IRL talk and discussion. Encourage them to subscribe as well. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video. If you do, please hit that like button and comment away in the comment section. I would sound off. I want to hear your thoughts on round 1. I think it was a really solid first portion of the draft. It was kind of chalk, and then we got some surprising picks once we got to obviously pick 17, which we'll talk about, and thereafter. So really fun first round. Highly enjoyed it. Hopefully you did too. But without further ado, let's get underway. Trevor Lawrence. This is an A+. Also, if you follow me on Twitter, I did a Twitter thread where I included a pick-by-pick grades. It's going to be a little bit different in this video, but a lot of it will be largely the same. My Twitter is in the description, so if you have interest in following me on Twitter, you can find it there. But like I said, Trevor Lawrence, this is an A+ pick. We've been talking about him being a number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft for 3 years now. Jacksonville needs a QB. I kind of hope they trade Gardner Minshew. Be interesting to see what he could eventually become in the NFL. Nonetheless, team that needs a QB gets a surefire franchise guy in Trevor Lawrence. And then Zach Wilson. This is obviously an A. Still no surprises here. Team needed to move on from Darnold. They traded him. Obviously, there's a glaring need at QB then. Robert Saleh, Mike LaFleur, they get their guy and hopefully can rebuild that culture in the Big Apple. But then this is where the draft really started. And in my final mock, I finally caved and made it Mac Jones. I bought into what Shanahan, John Lynch, and the 49ers were selling. I fell victim to the smokescreen. Apparently, Trey Lance was the guy all the way. I give it a B+. I think this is a solid pick. I mean, it's an A if it's Justin Fields. He's my number 3 player on the board, largely considering position value, and he's my QB3. But if you're going Lance, he's the youngest guy in the class, only 20 years old. I think he has a shot to start, maybe not week 1, but at some point in the 2021 season, maybe even week 1. We'll see how fast he's picking up. Apparently, he really impressed teams with his knowledge of the game, what he could do on a whiteboard. So that on top of his athletic, God-given ability, he's a fantastic runner of the football. He wants to run through you. He has great speed, super strong arm. Sometimes he short arms it a little bit. Tries to think about putting too much touch on it, and he kind of, I don't want to say babies it, but he pulls back the arm a little bit. But the arm is still there. Needs to become a more consistent, accurate passer, but he's also a guy who did not turn the ball over a lot at North Dakota State. Only 1 pick through an entire season as a starter, plus 1 game against Central Arkansas, which this past year, that's where the pick came. So you're getting at least a guy who's going to be a game manager in the sense that he won't turn the ball over, and he's a fantastic athlete, so that's a pretty high floor in my opinion. But Lance to the Niners, if you're going to trade all those assets to get the 3, Lance was a better pick than Mac Jones for sure. I give it a B+. And then here's maybe a little bit of a hot take. We get to the Falcons at 4. I originally on Twitter put this as a B- grade. I'll make it a B. My problem is this has got to be QB or trade down to me just to maximize the value. I know the restructured Matt Ryan's contract, blah, blah, blah. You can always restructure contracts. You can move Matt Ryan next offseason if you take a guy like Justin Fields and he's the answer, and a team can do what like the Rams did with Matt Stafford and restructure it on their end. This team doesn't lose games because of their offense. Additionally, their cap space is just terrible, so staying here at 4 makes it expensive and makes it to where you almost have to trade Julio Jones. And Kyle Pitts is one hell of a way to replace Julio Jones. I'm not doubting that. I mean, the things you can do with Pitts as an X, as a tight end in the slot, I mean, awesome chess piece for Coach Arthur Smith to have. But you just don't lose games with this roster due to their offense. And you look at my last mock draft I put out, I really wish there was a trade potentially out there. I know it takes 2 teams to make the trade, but they could have traded down and addressed defense, maybe traded back into the first round and taken a guy like Trevon Moehrig. You might not even need to, or maybe move up in just the second round. We're going to talk about Moehrig as we get to the end of the video and talk about some of the players still available. But Pitts is a once-in-a-lifetime generational player, and I can't deny that, so it's still a B. I just wish there was a different route the Falcons could have taken here. Next up, the Bengals at pick 5, Ja'Marr Chase. I give it an A-, right? I think Chase is the pick over Sewell, and in a lot of my mocks, I had a QB going 4, so Pitts was available, and Pitts was my pick at 5. Sewell's going to be an awesome player, and we'll talk about him once we get to the Lions at 7. But you can get a guy like, well, we thought you could get a guy like Alex Leatherwood at the top of round 2, but if not him, Liam Eichenberg, Dylan Radunz, Sam Cosmi maybe, if you want to play him at right tackle. Or you get a guy who's a true interior offensive lineman, Wyatt Davis, maybe a little early for Trey Smith, Landon Dickerson, Creed Humphrey, and you kick Trey Hopkins over to guard, Quinn Miners maybe if you like him that much. So I think what you can get on the interior in round 2 warrants taking the elite level pass catcher. Mine pass catcher number 2, but because Pitts is a tight end, wide receiver 1, Ja'Marr Chase is just unbelievable. And this is a team that uses 3 wide receiver sets more than anybody else in the league. So you have Ja'Marr Chase, you have Tyler Boyd, you have T. Higgins. Whew, that offense is going to be insane. And then I think at the top of round 2, you address interior offensive line, you put a smile on Joe Mixon's face, then defense probably in the 3rd round. But this is a good start to what should be an A caliber draft for the Bengals. And because Pitts and Chase are off the board, the Dolphins go Jalen Waddle. On Twitter, I gave it an A, but since Ja'Marr Chase is an A-, I will give Waddle an A-. I can't necessarily grade Waddle being taken as a higher grade, considering I have Chase as wide receiver 1. So maybe a little bit of a mishap on my end tweeting last night, but Jalen Waddle he's the wide receiver really this team needed, because you have Fuller, you have Parker on the outside. Waddle is going to be a fantastic field-stretching slot option. You can also just make the game easy for Tua, who obviously these two played together in college. That chemistry is awesome. Same could be said about Ja'Marr Chase and Joe Burrow. That's just a really great storyline for both these teams moving forward. But you can just set up short passes underneath, screens, jet sweeps, whatever. And Waddle's fantastic after the catch, with the ball in his hands, making defenders miss. So you can use him in a ton of different ways. I think he's just an exponentially better Jakeem Grant. And he also just has that speed threat that you might lose next offseason with Will Fuller only on a 1-year deal. But nonetheless, I mean, slam dunk pick. And also the knock on Waddle is a lot of his success came because he was in the slot, was facing off coverage. And now he's going to be in a role where he continues to play in the slot and won't be pressed because people worried, can he beat the press? So Waddle continues to play in a role that we know he's going to succeed in. Another field stretcher. This team has a ton of speed on the outside with Fuller, Grant, now Waddle. Got a contested catch guy in Devontae Parker. You're putting weapons around Tua, putting him in a position to succeed. Lions at 7. This is an A caliber selection. In a lot of ways, actually, you know what? Call it an A+. I think this is an A+ move. That's what I gave it on Twitter. And just like the Dolphins with Waddle, the clock started and the card was already in. The pick was made. Same thing with the Lions. And it felt like maybe they were to trade down, but it feels like maybe teams were willing to wait on QBs until we get to 11, which we'll talk about. But New England clearly was comfortable waiting until 15 and seeing if they could roll the dice to get a QB, which they did. But with that said, it felt like the Lions, with how quick they got the card in, were willing to trade back unless it was Penei Sewell. Sewell's there, and now you have Taylor Decker at left tackle. Penei Sewell said teams like him and told him be prepared, to potentially play right tackles. Now Detroit's in a situation where they have bookend tackles for Jared Goff or whoever moving forward. That's the way to build a team moving forward, especially so early on in the rebuilding stage. Fantastic selection. Some people's highest ranked player of a non-QB. Sewell's going to be a stud, still super young, getting better. This is a Dan Campbell biting kneecaps type of move, and I am here for it. Panthers at 8 took J.C. Horn. And this was probably our first big surprise. Maybe Waddle at 6 over Devonta Smith. Sewell falling to 7. You see mocks where that happens, but Horn over Slater. I think I would have gone Slater just because I'm not entirely sold on Greg Little. And even if you are, Slater's an improvement on the interior. And I think just given that Carolina, here's the talking point you probably heard 1,000 times, Carolina ran more cover 3 than anybody last year. And you can press with cover 3, think like Legion of Boom with Richard Sherman in Seattle. And Horn can certainly press the line and he'll be great, but he is not as good in zone coverage as he is in man. So I thought if they go corner, it's going to be Patrick Surtain. Instead, it's Horn. And with Troy Pride Jr. being taken from Notre Dame last year, it feels like Matt Rhule and his coaching staff eventually wants to work towards that man press. I think every team in the NFL would like to play man press, especially on those, big third down and 6 situations in the fourth quarter. You want to have those corners up the line, jamming wide receivers, not letting them get a clean release. And Horn's a guy who lets you do that, so I give it a B. I'd have gone another route, but Horn is an upgrade, and this is a team that needs corner, no doubt about it. And same thing I said about the Bengals, where you can wait to go offensive line in round 2. Maybe the Panthers are thinking they can get a Dylan Radunz or a Sam Cosmi or someone like that in the second round. Then we get to an early pick that I really just did not care for. Patrick Surtain of the Broncos, and it's nothing against Surtain, like obviously a super talented player. He was my corner 1. Great player just across the board. B+ is the way I describe him. He's just B+ at everything. Good in man, better than Horn in zone. Obviously a great bloodline. His dad was a fantastic player. It's just Denver, man. You spent 3 years, $30 million on Ronald Darby. You signed Kyle Fuller. You have one of the best nickel corners in the game in Bryce Callahan, and you drafted Michael Ojemudia in the 3rd round last year, who looked really good. One of the few corners that looked solid in his rookie year, and that's a great sign moving forward. You got to think he's going to continue to get better. So to me, I know Fuller's on a 1-year deal, but Ojemudia is kind of that insurance. Maybe Surtain is now. I was also thinking this has got to be Justin Fields. I know you get the trade to get Teddy Bridgewater, but you're only paying him $3 million. At that point, throw darts. Throw as many different options against the wall and hope one sticks. One has to, whether it's Fields, Locke, or Teddy B. So then I got to thinking, okay, well maybe they took Surtain because Denver's going to go in on Aaron Rodgers, which that was maybe bigger than any news that could have been made during the NFL draft. He wants out of Green Bay. Green Bay now says they don't plan on trading him, but what's the team going to say? It's open season. So I was thinking maybe Denver took Surtain to try to build a package around him, future picks, to try to get Aaron Rodgers in Denver. But then that obviously changes once we get to pick 29 with Green Bay taking Eric Stokes, which we'll talk about later on. But man, Surtain's a great player, but Micah Parsons is a perfect fit in what Vic Fangio wants in a linebacker in that 3-4 defense. He could be an edge rusher to eventually replace Von Miller. He can play on the inside. He also could trade back. You could go offensive line. I mean, Rashawn Slater's better than Jawan James. I don't know. It just felt like there were better options available for players who were equally talented. It's not even like you're reaching far down the board. Like Surtain and Parsons, interchangeable on a lot of people's boards for, one of, if not the best defensive player in the draft. A lot of people have it as one of those two, and if it's not one of those two, they're 2 and 3 or 3 and 4, whatever. So it felt like Denver didn't have to reach and could have gotten a bigger position of need filled here at pick number 9. So I got to give this a C. He's a good player, but it just feels like an overly crowded corner room. I get they play in a division with a ton of offense, but I feel like Parsons or Fields has got to be the pick here. Next up, the Eagles move up to pick number 10, a rare division trade. This was one heck of a sight to see. 2 teams swap picks, and then the Cowboys pick up a 3rd, and the Eagles ensure they get Devonta Smith over the Giants, who were originally scheduled to pick at 11. And I think if the Eagles didn't trade up here, and instead the Cowboys take Micah Parsons, who they ended up taking at 12, I think in that spot, maybe the Giants hold pat and they take Smith at 11. I'm not saying it for sure, but I think it's certainly in play. But because the Eagles are willing to be aggressive, give up a 3rd round pick, this year, I appreciate it. They go get their guy. They go get the outside separator. Though Smith can't play on the inside, but I think you already have that with Reagor. But a really nice compliment to Reagor at that. And just a wide receiver they don't have. A smooth separator, great hands, trying to make the game easier on Jalen Hurts, trying to see if he's your franchise guy. I give this, including the trade, an A for Philadelphia. And then my favorite move of the draft. I feel like this is everyone's favorite move. This just edges out what Minnesota was able to do, and then also Rashawn Slater falling, but we'll talk about that again at the end of this video. But man, Chicago, considering just a month ago, 6 weeks, we were talking about them giving up Roquan Smith, Akeem Hicks, and 3 ones to get Russell Wilson. They trade first-round picks. They swap this year, give up a 4, give up a future 1 to get a guy who has Russell Wilson potential. And I know that's kind of scary to say, considering like Russell Wilson is a great quarterback right now and a franchise guy and a top 5 QB, but that's Fields' ceiling. There's no guarantee he gets there. I understand that, but that's his ceiling. He can be a Russell Wilson caliber guy, and you got it at a much steeper price, and you're getting a guy who's not 30 plus. QBs can play longer in the NFL. I get that. I wouldn't have worried about Wilson, bombing out after like 2 years in Chicago, but this is a fresh reset. I don't necessarily know if it saves Matt Nagy's job, but I think Fields has a high likelihood of starting week 1 over Andy Dalton, and now it's just like you're overpaying Dalton. But I think it does save Ryan Pace's job, which in turn I will recognize improves the opportunity for Nagy to keep his job, just because those two, are obviously very close and have made a lot of the decisions together. But this is a move that I think certainly saves Matt Nagy's job, especially if Fields looks good as a rookie, and Ryan Pace's job, and if Fields looks good, and if this team can make the playoffs with Nick Foles and Mitch Trubisky, I feel good about them making the playoffs with Justin Fields if he can hit the ground running, which is not easy, but we're talking about compared to Mitch Trubisky, Nick Foles last year. And that's a pretty low floor to try to step over. So love this pick. It's an A+, a steal of the draft. I don't know how Fields falls to 11. The Bears give up a good amount of assets, but we've been saying it for years. They're QB away, and now they get a guy who is my QB3, my number 3 player in this class. And then the Cowboys, after trading down with Philadelphia, kind of talked about it with the Eagles pick. The Cowboys gain a 3rd and get the guy I think they were targeting at 10 with the corners off the board. Maybe it's Rashawn Slater, but clearly not, considering they passed on Slater here. But they get their guy plus a 3rd-round pick for a team that's looking for offensive line depth, a nose tackle, maybe another safety. Still need an answer at cornerback. I think that's probably where the attention turns to the top of round 2 as opposed to edge, where I've been giving him Boogie Basham. That probably becomes a corner, like maybe Asante Samuel if he falls a little bit more, maybe a Tyson Campbell. I could see that working as well, especially in a Dan Quinn defense. I think Campbell would be a really solid fit, so keep your eyes peeled for round 2 tonight. But Parsons, I hear a lot of Cowboys fans hating this because it's another off-ball linebacker. You already have Jalen Smith. You already have Leighton Vander Esch. I think Parsons gives you a little something different. I think Parsons is the best blitzer of any of those guys, which helps that pass rush big time. He needs to get better in coverage, but I already think he's a solid coverage linebacker. Not great, he can get better, totally. But also what he does in the run game, he shoots gaps, he's instinctual, he's a phenomenal athlete. And also with switching back to a 4-3, I think it better suits having Leighton Vander Esch and Micah Parsons as your, Sam and Will linebacker. You also had Keanu Neal, so maybe he's moving back to safety, whatever. Even if he doesn't and he's just a rotational guy, you're paying him next to nothing, so it's fine. And then you go back to playing Jalen Smith at inside linebacker in a 4-3 where he was really stellar. And same thing with Vander Esch at outside linebacker in a 4-3. Man, that linebacking core is about to be crazy, and I think this is a better pick than Cowboys fans want to give it credit. But if you are a Dallas fan, let me know in the comment section down below. And if it wasn't Parsons, who did you want to be here at 12? Take a chance on Farley, Slater? I don't know. I just feel like Parsons was a blue chip guy and the best option you could take here at 12. And then we get to my 3rd favorite pick. You could argue it should be 2, but I think the Vikings getting picks plus Darrisaw is just phenomenal. But Slater falls to the lap of the Chargers. Don't need to talk about this one for too long. This is Herbert's blindside protector. Dream scenario for LA. You couldn't have asked for a better situation, other than, I guess, maybe Penei Sewell falling in your lap. But a lot of people have Slater over Sewell. And, in a lot of ways, day one, right now, Slater is a better football player. So for a team that could potentially sneak into the playoffs, plays in a great division, you're looking to win now, Slater might have been the guy number 1 on their board anyways. Then we get to the New York Jets, and this is where I had the tweet lined up and everything. Oh, also, sorry. A+ for Fields, A on Parsons to Dallas. Sorry, I've been forgetting the grades. And then A+ for Slater to the Chargers. So A+, A+. Great string of picks. A+, A+. From the Eagles onto the Chargers. And then the Jets moving up to 14. I had like I said, I had the tweet lined up. I was like, this is Christian Darrisaw, no doubt about it. The Vikings are going to get their left tackle of the future, which makes their selection of him all the more sweet later on. But instead, the Jets move up and they take Elijah Vera Tucker. Maybe he can play right tackle, and you get your bookend guys with Becton at left and then Vera Tucker at right. But I think Vera Tucker's just going to play left guard, and they're going to completely protect the blind side of Zach Wilson, which, not a bad idea. So the Jets get pick number 14 and a fourth rounder, pick number 143 from Minnesota. The Vikings get pick 23, which became Christian Darrisaw, and then two 2021 third round picks. So this team already had 2/3, and now they got 2 more. Oh my goodness, you got to be kidding me. They're 100% going to be trading back into the second round. No doubt in my mind. They're going to use these thirds to get back into the second round, and maybe they're in a position to get Barmore, who fell. Maybe even Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah in that 4-3. Whew. Or an edge guy like Ronnie Perkins, or a safety like Trevon Moehrig if the Jags don't take him at 33. The Vikings are setting themselves up for an A-caliber draft, and with the news of Rodgers being on his way out, same could be said about Chicago. The Vikings are positioning themselves to be the front runner. Right now, I'd say it's Minnesota, but the Bears getting Fields, they're not too far behind. Nonetheless, talking about this pick for the Jets, they gave up a lot, but they get the best interior offensive lineman. On Twitter, I gave it a B+. I'll give it a B after rethinking about what all they gave up. But this is a team that also has 2 first-round picks next year. They have a ton of assets, so they're aggressive. Use them, trade up, get their guy, protect the blind side of Zach Wilson. And then the Pats get Mac Jones. I got to give it an A. I know this offense has been built more towards Cam Newton, but Tom Brady also thrived in that 2 tight end offense with Hernandez and Gronk. So who's to say Mac Jones, who people have been calling Baby Brady, Brady 2.0, whichever moniker you want to give him, an offense where he has Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith, and also wide receivers like Jacoby Myers, who had some big games. Maybe N'Keal Harry figures it out. But more importantly, Nelson Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne and Damian Harris in the backfield. I don't see why Mac Jones can't fit in that offense. He may not have the running element that Cam does, but you have Cam on roster. I'm all about teams having a backup quarterback. If you have a statue as a starter, having a mobile backup and adding 12 plays, 15 plays to a playbook where you can use that guy's legs and just keeping defenses honest and having one more thing in the game plan that defenses have to key in on. The Pats get a franchise guy, potential franchise QB, without having to trade up. How could this not be an A? We've been hearing Pats like Mac Jones. Maybe they liked Lance. Lance is more of that Cam Newton build, but I mean, you just can't hate this pick. This is just tremendous. Pats get maybe their guy all along and don't even have to trade up to get it. Then we get to the Cardinals. Gave it a B on Twitter. I'm going to knock it down to a B-. I just don't know where Zaven Collins figures into that defense. In the day of the draft, maybe even the day before, we were starting to hear a lot of Zaven Collins hype and Arizona really liking him at 16. I feel like here you take the risk and you take Farley, or you trade back. I know it takes another team to trade back, but you got to get something. Or maybe you're the aggressor and you're the one moving up to go get a Devonta Smith. It feels like they were the team that was hurt by Waddle going 6th the most. But I don't know, maybe Zaven Collins with the added weight is your Marcus Golden replacement. Golden's only in a 1-year deal. Then you have Collins and Chandler Jones as your 3-4 outside linebackers for the future. That sounds lethal. But we haven't seen Collins in a full-time edge rushing role. So, it's tough to bank on that development, especially for an offensive staff like Cliff Kingsbury is an offensive guy. So, and there's a new head coach, not even a guy who's been around forever and ever and ever, and we've seen him groom edge rushers. Also, if he's not playing edge, is he like the complete opposite of an inside linebacker compared to Isaiah Simmons? Are they just going to play next to each other? And is Collins your Jordan Hicks replacement? I just don't know. Are they going to buy into this versatility, use him in different roles, play Simmons at linebacker and safety, and just get crazy? If they do that, and I think there's potential for that defense, using different guys in different chess piece type of roles, that could be really an insane defense. But, or even Christian Barmore, I think, kind of pivoting. Barmore would have been a great pick. Throw him next to J.J. Watt and just boost up the pass rush that way. That would have been a really interesting fit. But Collins is a good player, and I don't want to knock it, but I think I got to give this a B-. I just don't know how he fits in Arizona. Would have loved to see him fall to Miami instead. And then we get to the worst pick in the first round. This is Travis Etienne at 25, which we'll get to in a second. But the Raiders, man, this is just the brand at this point, right? Like, reaching on these big school guys like Damon Arnett, like Clelin Ferrell. Like if you went to Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, these teams that compete for national championships, then especially if you have a second round grade. If you went to those schools and had a second round grade, for a lot of people, the Raiders are all about it. I think Leatherwood's better at guard than tackle. I felt okay with him going to a team like Indianapolis, who produces and develops tackles really well. But maybe he's the right tackle of the future. But if you're looking right tackle, take Tevin Jenkins. You don't have to move him. He literally played right tackle. And he's a run block and mauler, just like what you think you're getting in Leatherwood. So I don't know. I last night, thinking on the fly, gave it a C+. I think it's a little too generous. C-. C- here for Leatherwood. And it's nothing against the player, but there was a ESPN graphic, 60% chance that he would have been available at pick 60 with the Raiders back on the clock. I don't have him falling to that point. I had him going to the Bengals at the top of round 2, where he could play guard and be a fantastic fit. But nonetheless, if you're looking for a right tackle, you got to go Tevin Jenkins or Christian Darrisaw and flip him over from left to right. And that's the other thing. Like, if you're going to flip a left tackle to right, take Darrisaw. He's just a better player right now. And he was the top-rated run-blocking offensive tackle in college football per PEF. Like, I don't know. I'm sorry, Raiders fans. I just don't have any positive things to really say about this other than, like, he's a really good run blocker, and maybe I'm wrong. Been wrong before, could be wrong again. Anyways, moving on to the Dolphins, taking Jalen Phillips at pick 18. Give it a B+, man. Like, my edge won. If he had no concussions and he fell to this point, I mean, I don't think he would have fallen to this point, really. If he didn't have those concussions, this would be an A+. But I also think he's a little bit better fit in a 4-3, but Brian Flores is a great coach. Knows how to work with a defense. Literally a linebacker coach at his time in New England, so feel confident with him coaching up Phillips at a 3-4 outside linebacker position. I'm interested to see how he plays out in open space if he is playing outside linebacker, but you can't deny the talent that Phillips has, and he doesn't have that many reps under his belt. He still has a high curve of improvement, so really like this pick for Miami. Give it a B+, maybe an A-. Then we get to Jamin Davis, and I was actually watching the draft with the Washington football team fan. And, at first we were thinking, all right, this is Darrisaw, or it's Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who I had been mocking, and I can't believe is available heading into round 2. But Jamin Davis, reportedly, was the #1 ranked defensive player on Ron Rivera's board. Ron Rivera, former linebacker. Jack Del Rio, a former linebacker. Those two guys I trust when it comes to their eye for talent at the linebacker position. Jamin Davis, I think, is their day 1 Mike inside linebacker, but he could also play Will or Sam over someone like Cole Holcomb or whoever else they might have at that outside linebacking position. Davis is an uber athletic freak. I mean, this is, to steal the words of Mike Reino, this is a first team, all get him off the bus type of guy, because he is yoked beyond all belief. Insane athlete. He's the guy you want stepping off the bus first just to intimidate everybody else. Jamin Davis is that. Super high learning curve, only 1 year as a starter at Kentucky, got better week by week, and I think working with Jack Del Rio and Ron Rivera, this is going to sound kind of crazy, but this is the upside. This is the potential. If everything works out right, this could be Ron Rivera's more athletic Luke Kuechly. Let me know what you think about that in the comment section down below. That might be too hot of a take for some ears to hear. Anyways, the Giants at 20, they trade back from pick number 11 in that trade for Chicago. So they get a future first. They get a 4th round pick next year and a 5th rounder this year. That's more whatever, but a future 1 and a future 4. Solid. Also get the 5th this year, like I said. And it felt like the Giants, especially with this pick, it felt like they also wanted Waddle. Just like what I said with Arizona. I think Arizona would have been aggressive and moved up to get Waddle. It feels like the Giants, if Waddle fell to them at 11, that would have been their guy. But since he wasn't, they get a future first. They get a couple of mid-round picks, one this year, one next year, and they get the baby Waddle of the class in a lot of ways. Tony, who's this freak athlete, super fast, twitchy, maybe the quickest guy. You need to work on his route tree. Ran a lot of option routes at Florida, but I still see, given his quickness and what he did at the Senior Bowl that week in specific, he looks to be a very polished route runner. Just need to improve those hands. And it's another weapon for Daniel Jones. You're going to find out what Daniel Jones is all about. Also, forgot to give a grade here. I'll go B+ here for Jamin Davis, maybe A-. And then Tony, considering the value the Giants got, plus they got a guy like Tony, I got to give it an A. I'm a huge Kadarius Toney fan. He was my wide receiver 5 in this class. And I felt like the Giants, who were eyeing Waddle potentially, got the step down version, the like B-plus version of Jalen Waddle. Also a freak after the catch. He can make it easy on Jones. Give him short underneath stuff. Let him do his thing with the ball in his hands after the catch in open space. But he also can be a slot guy who stretches the field, which I like Sterling Shepard, but he's not a slot guy who stretches the field like Kadarius Toney will. Moving on to the Colts at 21, Kwity Paye. This is gave it a B+ last night. This is an A-. If this was Jalen Phillips, it's A+, but Kwity Paye got better year in year. Finally put the numbers and the production together last year at Michigan. Athletic freak, sub-7, 3-cone. He has all those measurables that NFL teams want, and he's day one the best edge rusher in Indianapolis. Don't need to drone on about this. This is an A- pick in my opinion. Great selection here for the Colts. Now I think they're eyeing left tackle in round 2. And then we get to the Titans at 22. I'm going to give it a B. I like aggressive plays in the draft. And honestly, Tennessee runs a lot of 2 wide receiver sets, so I thought about changing in my last mock because maybe they're thinking we don't need another wide receiver, we don't need a Bateman, we don't need a Terrence Marshall because Josh Reynolds is fine opposite of A.J. Brown, who's a stud wide receiver 1. So then their next biggest need, round 1-wise, would be corner. And this could be Greg Newsome, who, though, I will say, has injury concerns and really has one first-round talent caliber season and was over a 6-game season in the Big Ten. Newsome looked fantastic, and I think he's a round 1 type of guy. We're going to talk about him very shortly, and the Browns stealing him, one of my 5 favorite picks of the first round. But man, Farley, no injury concerns. He's CB1, so kind of like what the Titans did with Jeffrey Simmons. You roll on the guy who has the injuries and hope he can stay healthy, and if it works out, you get a guy who might be looked at in a few years' time as the steal of the draft. Kind of like what maybe not the steal of the draft, but Jeffrey Simmons is certainly a steal from his draft class. So, I think he's a tremendous upside play here for Tennessee. He can play on the outside opposite of Janoris Jenkins. Really love what Tennessee might have here in Caleb Farley. And then we get to outside of Justin Fields, the next best pick in this class. Minnesota gains 2 third-round picks from the Jets. Move down to 23 and still get their guy. Hats off to Rich Billman. He read the league. He read the room across the league better than anybody. He clearly knew that if Washington football team had the chance to take Jamin Davis, that's who they wanted over a offensive tackle. He must have known. I don't know how, but he must have known. And he knows the Giants have a crowded tackle room as is. And the Colts could have taken Darrisaw, and that would have been a good pick. But Spillman must have known or maybe even they were comfortable with either Paye or Darrisaw at this spot. And it's an opportunity where it's like, whoever Indy takes, we're going to take the other. Maybe that's what Spielman was thinking. And then knowing that Tennessee probably isn't going to go left tackle, gains 2 extra thirds, and he gets extra ammunition to almost certainly move into the second round and take an edge like a Ronnie Perkins or maybe a potential QB of the future in Kellen Mond. That's getting kind of wild to think about. But Darrisaw, plug and play left tackle, fantastic run blocker. Dalvin Cook has got to be the happiest guy in Minnesota right now. But also Kirk Cousins has got to be stoked. It's not Rashad Hill blocking his blind side. Instead, it's Christian Darrisaw, who at his peak could be a Trent Williams level guy. I've seen that comp go around a ton, and that's what I see. Oh, that's a mean run blocker, already a good pass blocker, but has room to grow in that spot and has a Trent Williams type of ceiling. Then we get to my favorite team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. So A+ for Darrisaw, second favorite pick in the class. If that didn't make it clear, it was going to be an A+. Then we get to my favorite team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going to give Najee Harris a B+. So let me pose this question to anybody who hates the idea of a first-round running back. And I am 90% of the time I don't want a running back in the first round. And you're about to hear me knock on Travis Etienne in the Jags being my second to least favorite pick of the draft, just ahead of Alex Leatherwood of the Raiders. But Najee Harris is my running back 1, just ahead of Javonte Williams. And those 2 guys are what Pittsburgh wants to do. They want those ground and pound guys. And Harris, in a lot of ways, makes me think about Le'Veon Bell. Great pass catcher. Gonna win at the line of scrimmage. 5 yards in a pound of dust, whatever the old cliche is. That's kind of the Harris model. Also, Pittsburgh doesn't really have a great pass-catching running back. Maybe it's Anthony McFarland, but Harris, I think, is a better pass catcher already than McFarland. And let me pose this question to anybody who says there's bigger needs here. If the Steelers take Landon Dickerson here, who I think would have been a fine pick, I'd probably still give it a B+. And in your eyes, maybe you're looking at Harris here, and it's a reach. Too early to take a running back. And you gave it, let's say, a D. But instead, it's Landon Dickerson, and you give it a B. What happens in round 2 if the Steelers somehow still got Najee Harris, or they got Javonte Williams, who I don't think is going to be available, especially now with Harris and Etienne gone. But what if we somehow got Williams? you then look at it as a B plus for Dickerson or Humphrey or whoever, and then an A plus with that running back. What's the difference in going the other way around? I think Dickerson has a high likelihood of being available at 55 when the Steelers pick in round 2. And if not him, Creed Humphrey. And if somehow not Creed Humphrey as well, Quinn Miners. I don't think there's a need to go out there and reach for an interior offensive lineman when you could go get Najee Harris and improve that offense and fill a big-time need. I know it's a little early for a running back, but we're talking about the back half of round 1. I'm willing to let it slide. This is that 10% exception, in my opinion. I think the A-plus caliber pick, though, would have been Asante Samuel Jr. I'm willing to admit that I am excited for what Najee Harris can do, but if the Steelers, or not even Asante Samuel, what about the guy who went here at 26, Greg Newsome, who has great size, super good athlete, fits that outside role that was, depleted by the cut of Steven Nelson. So if it was corner, I think I would have called it an A for Pittsburgh, and then you try to go IOL or running back in round 2. But Harris here, then you go offensive line in round 2. I think you're going to look back if the Steelers go center in round 2. I think you'll look back at this pick a little bit more favorably, but I stand my ground. I don't think this team is going to go tackle. I think they're going to roll with Chukuma Okorafor at left tackle, maybe a reunion with Alejandro Villanueva, because I don't know how good of a fit he is at right tackle in Baltimore. Another talk for another time. But I really do like Harris here. I'll give it a B+ for Pittsburgh. And then we get to ETN with the Jags. I give it a C-. Just right in the territory of Leatherwood to the Raiders. I'm not saying ETN's a bad player, but you already have James Robinson, and it's a good 1-2 duo, but then take ETN at 33 if you really like him. I mean, this is, to me, a Trevon Moehrig, Christian Barmore, and really Jacksonville's fortunate one of those two guys wasn't taken, or even a Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Like, the Trevon Moehrig, Barmore joke, Elijah Moore, if you wanted to get outside the box and get a weapon for Trevor Lawrence, or even Tevin Jenkins. Tevin Jenkins still available at this point. I just, taking a guy who's in running back 2 in the first round, see Harris could be running back 1, and he fits what the Steelers want to do. ETN's a combo running back. Do you spend a first-round pick on a committee guy? I just don't think you do. And also, if you're looking at the Jags, and I think what they could have done is take Barmore here / Moehrig, and then gotten the other guy at 33. And then you're talking about 3 guys that might top 20, 25 in the class through the first 33 picks, and that's an A+ caliber draft. So I give this ETN pick a C-. I know I sound hypocritical back and forth, but I think it's just about where the teams are and where they could have gone, and based off the position of need. Like the Steelers, Benny Snell, Anthony McFarland don't look like to be the guys. James Robinson's a good enough guy. I think you could have gotten ETN in round 2. If not him, maybe Ramondre Stevenson or Kenneth Gainwell later on. Here's another A+ caliber pick. I actually gave it an A on Twitter. I'll stick to that. Greg Newsome. Again, only put it together for 1 year, and it was over 6 games in the Big Ten, but the Browns have been waiting for Greedy Williams to get healthy, and instead of waiting when they can win now, they go out and get a guy who also has injury concerns, so, there is still that element, but that's the game of football. They go get a guy who can play on the boundary opposite of Denzel Ward. They got Jadeveon Clowney. They signed Takk McKinley to be a rotation piece. They're still looking for an interior or defensive lineman, but in round 2, I don't think Barmore falls to them, but Levi Onwuzurike. Or maybe you wait till round 3 and a Davion Nixon, Milton Williams, Oso Digizua could be there and fill that Sheldon Richardson role. They'll go out there and get a fantastic round 1 corner, and it really pieces together one of the last few big needs this team had. And, man, this defense is going to be fantastic. You already know the offense is going to put up points. This is a Browns team that I think, and I'm a Steelers fan saying this, I think you got to consider the Browns the front runner in the AFC North. On to another AFC North team, and another team that might be fighting with the Browns atop the division, which kills me to say, but Rashad Bateman, this is an A caliber pick. I mean, fantastic value. He's the wide receiver this team doesn't have. Big catch radius, can make those contested catches, strong hands. This is the guy they needed on the outside. And you know who else has got to be happy about this? Mark Andrews. They have asked Mark Andrews to do too much of that. He has been too often leaned on to be, hey, it's 3rd and 8. We need you to make a contested catch. We need you to get open because nobody else can. So I think adding Bateman helps out Mark Andrews, keeps defenses honest. You can't just key in on Andrews in those big 3rd downs. Also, it opens up the field, I think, for Hollywood Brown. He's going to start facing corner 2s instead of CB1s. Fantastic pick. And this is about the range. I had Bateman going 22 to Tennessee, but him falling to 27 is an egregious fall. So the Ravens get a tremendous value here in Bateman, and he's a perfect fit. A few more picks to talk about in the first round. We're winding down. Hopefully you all have enjoyed. And then we get to probably my third to bottom, or third least favorite pick, however you want to word it, here with the Saints. I get Peyton Turner. I know why teams like him, right? Like, super explosive, athletic guy. Just, he only played in 4 games last year, and he has so many injuries. And this is a team that, remember, traded up and took Marcus Davenport. And, we were all convinced, okay, that was the DN they needed opposite of Cam Jordan. This defense is going to be elite. And we're still waiting for Davenport to put together, though I think he can this year. But that begs the question, if Davenport puts it together, are you re-signing him? I don't know. You just took Turner. And if you re-sign him, then what are you doing with Turner long term? Other than maybe like when Cam Jordan, calls it quits. I give it a C. I know why teams like Turner, but Elijah Moore should have been the pick here, or an Eric Stokes, a Tyson Campbell, and Asante Samuel Jr., wide receiver corner, and Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. For God's sakes, we've been talking about this team needing linebacker for so long. Go out there and get a guy like Joke who can help in the run, cover slot defenders. He's great in pass coverage in general. I just feel like Turner could have been a round 2 pick here for New Orleans, and there's other guys who are still available somehow that would have been a better value here at 28. Also, the same could be said here for Green Bay. I'm going to give Eric Stokes a B. Georgia runs a lot of press man. They wanted to have you at the line of scrimmage, and I think Green Bay is going to run a lot more soft zone. So I really would have loved to see Asante Samuel Jr. be the corner pick here. But Eric Stokes is a freak. Has the big body that Green Bay likes in corners. Superb athlete. And like I said in my tweet, Kevin King cost his team a trip to the Super Bowl, in my opinion. Anything could have happened in that second half, but if Kevin King doesn't give up that touchdown at the end of the first half, I think that game plays out in the favor of the Packers, and Green Bay's on their way to the Super Bowl. But you get a position of need. Stokes is better than Kevin King, so for that matter, I give it a B. Also, this team just, I don't know what they're going to do without Aaron Rodgers. I'm a big Jordan Love guy. Loves tape. And I see why Green Bay took him last year as the guy to sit behind Rodgers, though that is ultimately what has irritated Rodgers the most. But with that said, kind of wish this team went Elijah Moore, gotten a weapon for Jordan Love, and then maybe there is a package with Denver where you get Patrick Surtain and picks, or maybe even New England where you get Stephon Gilmore in picks. Maybe not so much now that Mac Jones is the pick, but Denver in specific, you could have gotten Surtain picks, and that could have been your corner. You go Elijah Moore here. I know we're talking hypotheticals, but nonetheless, a B pick here. The Packers have done worse. They have reached worse, but I think Stokes probably an early 2 at best kind of guy. But the end of round 1 for a Super Bowl contending team, sometimes you got to reach a little bit. So I still give it a B. Rambling aside, and messed up the screen there. On the Buffalo Bills at pick 30, taking Greg Rousseau, I'm also going to give this a B. This could go either way, right? Like, I know Rousseau is raw. Only 1 year of playing time. 15.5 sacks sounds great, but a lot of it came on the interior. I've heard the talking points. But what the Bills are doing at edge makes me think about what the Bucs did with corner, where they draft these guys and they don't need them to be impact starters day one. The Bills take Epineza last year in the second round. Now they get Rousseau. These 2 guys who are raw, high ceiling type of dudes, big bodies, super strong. Check the boxes, you just need to polish them. And what the Bucs ultimately did with Carlton Davis, Jamel Dean, had them sit, get better, refine their technique, and then they became starting caliber corners on a Super Bowl winning team. And it feels like that's what the Bills are doing, just at edge instead of corner. So with a team that doesn't have a whole lot of needs, sure, they could have gone in a different direction, maybe gotten a more impactful day one edge rusher. I like the idea of playing off the upside of Greg Rousseau, and also I think in third and long situations, he's a guy who can kick inside and be next to Ed Oliver. And the same could be said about AJ Epineza, but you have Mario Addison, Jerry Hughes, 2 old guys who you're trying to move on from, but you don't have to rush Rousseau into a starting role. Also, loved his interview, actually. It wasn't a whole lot of interviews I listened to, but it sounds like he's been grinding, and hopefully he has been putting in work, and maybe he'll be better day one than I'm anticipating. But this is a project. This is a projection type of move. Him and Epineza, I think next year and then 2 years from now, we'll be looking at this defensive end spot in Buffalo, and we'll be looking at a fearsome front 4 rush with those 2 and Ed Oliver between them. 2 more picks to talk about. Jason Oweh. This is an I gave it an A-. I'm going to change that. This is an A+. There is no better spot for Jayson Oweh to find himself playing for. It's a team that develops edge rushers with the best of them, arguably the best in the NFL. He has the athletic measurables, he has the size, he just needs to become more refined. He doesn't have to start right away, though I think he's a guy who, the more reps you give him, the better he'll be. So maybe you do give him the nod over Pernell McPhee starting opposite of Tyus Bowser. But I love what this coaching staff can do with a guy like Jayson Oweh. And now you walk away from the first round. Sure, you didn't get a right tackle. Again, I don't think Alejandro Villanueva is that good of a fit, considering he's a better pass blocker than run blocker. Maybe moving to right tackle, maybe you can make it work. But you get a big catch radius wide receiver in Rashad Bateman, and then Jayson Oweh. The Ravens dominated the first round, which again kills me as a Steelers fan to see the Browns have a great draft. The Ravens have a tremendous draft as well. Last pick of the first round, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers get Joe Tryon. A lot of the same could be said about him that we said about Oweh. Great athlete, has the size. And then similar to what we said about Rousseau, opted out of 2020, so it's been a while. Feel like he really could have benefited from the reps. Washington used him in a hybrid role, so you know he can play 3-4 outside linebacker, he can play in space, he can play in coverage. And again, like Oweh, like Rousseau, he doesn't have to start day one. He can sit behind Jason Pierre-Paul, who's put together a fantastic career. One hell of a guy to learn from. And you have Shaq Barrett, one of these late-blooming athletic freaks. Again, what a guy to have in the locker room and in that linebacking room with you. Love what the Bucs are doing. They're investing in their future while also having a team that can win right now, returning all 22 starters. This is an A pick for Tampa. Now let's talk about, gotta be the top 5 guys left on the board. Trevon Moehrig, Christian Barmore, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, Elijah Moore, and Tevin Jenkins. All 5 first-round guys. Moore is the one I'm least surprised about just because of how deep this wide receiver class is. It felt like him or Tony was going to be there in round 2. Tony goes to the Giants, so I was starting to think, all right, Moore certainly could fall into round 2 to a team like at the top of round 2 if the Packers or the Saints don't take him. Also, speaking of the Packers, man, I would have loved to see them take Tevin Jenkins here, but that's a different note. But Jenkins, man, someone's going to get a run-blocking beast of a right tackle, and maybe a guy who could switch over and play left tackle one day and be a franchise guy. And then Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, I wonder if it's kind of like an Isaiah Simmons thing, just like amplified by 10, where it's just like you don't know where to play him because he does so many things well. But man, a team's going to get a fantastic all-around linebacker who can stop the run, play in coverage, be an overhang defender, defend the slot to a high level. It really only fits in a 4-3, so we'll see who makes that move. If Philadelphia gets him, my word, considering he was talking about what it takes to play in Philly, the Eagles somehow got him in round 2 when early on in this process I was thinking about him going as high as 6 to the Eagles because I love that fit. I don't know. Right now, that might be my early projection, and also I just feel like that'd be a great spot for Joke to thrive. So, lots of talent still left, and if you're not fired up for rounds 2 and 3 tonight, this is a great draft class. There's going to be a lot of good football players taken tonight, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But now I'm going to go through some of my favorite picks, and then we're going to wrap up the video. I know it's been a long one. Hopefully you all have enjoyed. I appreciate you watching throughout this point. If you have, again, remember, comment down below your favorite team, who they took, what you grade the pick, and also your favorite and least favorite picks of the first round. Favorite picks, outside of these QBs, that was a good one. I like the Lance over Jones pick. Wish it was Fields, but speaking of Fields, that's my favorite move. Chicago moving up, being aggressive, getting the franchise guy of the future. We've been saying it for years. They're a QB away, and well, they might have found their answer. Number 2 has to go to Minnesota. You pick up 2/3. You get the ammunition to move back into the second round tonight, and you still get your guy, franchise left tackle Christian Darrisaw. Just a tremendous pick. Number 3, got to give it to the Chargers. They get their, again, blindside protector for Justin Herbert. Rashawn Slater somehow falls into their lap. I am all about it. And then I'm going to cheat a little bit. Number 4, I'm going to give it to the Ravens. Man, Rashad Bateman and Jayson Oweh. If we're talking about just one or the other, I think I'll go Bateman just over Oweh, just given the fact Bateman I know is going to make an impact day 1 and be a starter, wide receiver 1, and it's an offense that needs help in that area versus a defense that we know is already pretty good, though they do need edge, and I'm not neglecting that. And then number 5, I'll give it up to the Browns, which again, like I've said, kills me. Boundary corner opposite of Denzel Ward, and even if Greedy Williams stays healthy, it's a pass-heavy league. You have Troy Hill, who I think is a fantastic slot corner. He had a great year in LA in that role. And you got John Johnson III with Ronnie Harrison Jr., Grant Delpit. I mean, just my word, that defense is looking so solid with the additions of Clowney, Takk McKinley, which I talked about earlier. And you know that offense is already stellar. Talk about some of my least favorite picks. Honestly, I think a lot of teams got better. So there's not a lot of picks that I'd say I don't like other than ETN at 25 and Alex Leatherwood at 17. I'm confused about Zaven Collins at 16. Felt like the Jets gave up a lot to get Vera Tucker. And then one more questionable one. I'll say the Falcons, not because Kyle Pitts isn't a stud, but I wish they could have traded back and focused on defense. I feel like that would put them in a better position to win now. Though I will say, it's kind of fun to think about since you got Pitts and you had to pay him a lot, feels like Julio Jones is on the move. Ravens get Bateman, so it feels like maybe they're out of the Julio Jones race. You're going to never have enough wide receivers, so maybe not. But a team like New England, who we've been talking about with him and Julio for years now. Maybe Green Bay, if they move on from Aaron Rodgers' contract, get an awesome weapon opposite of Devontae Adams. So this pick, I still gave it a B. Wish the Falcons could have traded down, but now I'm eager to see what they do with Julio Jones and what the packages looks like. I would have to anticipate probably close to the Stephon Diggs package where they get a future first-round pick out of it. But that is going to do it for the video, everybody. Hopefully you all enjoyed. Sound off in the comment section. Give me your thoughts on round one. Also, tell me who your favorite team is and what you think they should do on day 2 with rounds 2 and 3. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button. And if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing if you want more sports content coming your way. Hope you all have a fantastic day. And until next time, my name is Tej, and I am signing off.
I'm part of the last generation that remembers time of God.